18 children, one womb, one father who found every single one of them unbearable to look at. Before there was a Titanomachy, before there was an Olympus, there was this generation, the first children ever born into the universe, split into 3 completely different forms, most of whom you've never heard named on this channel even once. Not because their stories weren't preserved, but because a single sibling's name has absorbed nearly all the attention this entire generation gets in popular retellings. This is the full roster of the family Uranos feared enough to imprison entirely, and the same family Gaia loved enough to forge a weapon and start a war over. Every single figure in this episode is a grandparent, great-grandparent, or great-great-grandparent of a god you've already watched a full episode about. As we've covered in the Gaia and Uranos episodes, the sky and the earth had 18 children together, and Hesiod is specific that they came in 3 distinct forms, not one. 12 titans, roughly human in shape though vast in scale. 3 Cyclopes, single-eyed master craftsmen, and 3 Hecatoncheires, giants with 100 hands and 50 heads each. Uranos's disgust wasn't evenly distributed. Ancient sources suggest it was the Cyclopes and Hecatoncheires specifically that horrified him, even though all 18 ended up imprisoned the same way. It's worth pointing out how unusual this makes the entire generation as a mythological unit. Most divine families in most mythologies share one general form. This one doesn't, and the imbalance in how their own father treated them ends up shaping nearly everything that happens to this generation afterward, including which of them eventually get freed, and in what order. The 12 titans are almost always described in 6 married pairs, and each pair governs a genuinely distinct piece of the cosmos. Oceanus and Tethys governed the great freshwater river believed to encircle the entire world, along with the sea's nourishing currents, the source, in most tellings, of every river and spring that would ever exist. Hyperion and Theia were living light itself. Their children would become the sun, the moon, and the dawn, meaning literally every source of natural light in this universe descends from just these 2. Coeus and Phoebe ruled intellect and prophetic inquiry. Their granddaughter, born generations later, would be Apollo and Artemis's own mother, making 2 gods already fully covered on this channel, direct descendants of a Titan pairing most viewers have never heard named before this episode. Creus, tied to the constellations and the axis of the heavens, is one of the least documented Titans in any surviving source. Hesiod names him and lists his children and says almost nothing else. Iapetus, associated with mortality and craftsmanship, would father Atlas, Prometheus, Epimetheus, and Menoetius, names that carry most of the Titan generation's later drama, and most of its later suffering too. And Kronos and Rhea, the youngest pair, whose story this channel has already told in full. The 3 Cyclopes, Brontes, Steropes, and Arges, whose names translate roughly to Thunderer, Lightning Bringer, and Bright One, were master smiths, each born with a single eye at the center of their forehead. They weren't simple laborers. In every account, they're the only beings in existence capable of forging thunder and lightning as physical objects, a skill that becomes critical to the entire outcome of the Titanomachy generations later. It's worth noting they aren't the same Cyclopes who show up centuries later in Homer's Odyssey. Those are a completely separate, much later tradition of shepherd giants living on a remote island, sharing only the single eye and the name. Ancient sources themselves occasionally blur the 2 together, but Hesiod's Cyclopes are specifically craftsmen, tied to Gaia and Uranos's original generation, with no connection to the wandering hero stories that come much later. The 3 Hecatoncheires, Cottus, Briareos, and Gyges, were, according to Hesiod, the most powerful beings ever born. 100 arms each, 50 heads each, strength beyond anything else in creation. They were also, by every surviving account, the children Uranos feared most, and the ones imprisoned deepest and longest as a result. Briareos in particular shows up again later in Greek myth under a second name, Aigaion, described in some traditions as siding with Zeus during an entirely separate rebellion among the Olympians themselves. A rare case of a primordial figure staying directly relevant to the story for generation after generation, instead of fading out after this one appearance. We've covered Uranos's cruelty in his own episode. All 18 children forced back inside Gaia's body as soon as they were born, causing her constant physical agony. What's worth repeating here? It wasn't just the Cyclopes and Hecatoncheires. All 12 Titans went into that same prison too, meaning every single figure in this episode spent their entire early existence sealed away before ever seeing daylight. Every god you've watched on this channel, going back to the very first episode, descends from a generation whose collective first memory, across all 18 of them, regardless of form, was total darkness and confinement, not freedom. When Kronos overthrows Uranos, the Titans are freed. But here's the detail almost nobody covers. Kronos does not free the Cyclopes or the Hecatoncheires. He leaves them imprisoned, repeating his own father's exact cruelty toward the very siblings who could have helped him, years before he ever swallows a single child of his own. It's the first sign, long before the Golden Age even properly begins, that the son who overthrew a tyrant was already becoming one. Most retellings that praise Kronos' Golden Age as humanity's best era skip past this detail entirely. It's a Golden Age built from its very first day, on the same imprisonment his own reign was supposed to end. It's Zeus, generations later and mid-war against Kronos, who finally frees the Cyclopes and Hecatoncheires from Tartarus, a strategic decision that arguably wins him the entire Titanomachy. In gratitude, the Cyclopes forge Zeus's signature thunderbolt, the weapon that defines him for the rest of mythology, meaning the single most recognizable object associated with Zeus in nearly every piece of art or media that's ever depicted him wasn't made by Zeus at all. It's a gift from 3 siblings his own father refused to free. The Hecatoncheires joined the war directly, described as hurling massive boulders by the hundreds simultaneously, overwhelming the Titan forces through sheer numbers. 18 children, and it's the 2 groups their own father feared most who ultimately decide the war. There's a detail worth sitting with here too. Zeus's decision to free them isn't just tactical. Every source that covers this moment treats it as a genuine reversal of 2 full generations of the exact same cruelty, the first time in this entire family's history that captivity is answered with release instead of repetition. After the Titanomachy, this generation doesn't share one single ending. Most of the 12 Titans who fought for Kronos are cast into Tartarus, now guarded, in a final irony, by the same Hecatoncheires their father once feared and their brother once refused to free. But not all of them share that fate. Oceanus stayed neutral throughout the entire war and was never punished. Themis and Mnemosyne, by several accounts, actually go on to advise the new Olympian order rather than oppose it. And Iapetus's son Prometheus, a full generation removed from this original 12, becomes central to an entirely separate story about humanity itself. Even within Tartarus, the fates aren't identical. Some traditions describe certain Titans eventually released after long enough imprisonment, while others, Kronos included by several accounts, remain there permanently. 18 siblings, who started in the exact same prison, end this story in at least 5 distinct positions: eternal punishment, conditional release, declared neutrality, active advisory power, and in Prometheus's case, an entirely new story of his own that this channel hasn't told yet. Most retellings compress this entire generation down to just Kronos, a single name standing in for 18 distinct beings with 18 distinct roles, from forging thunder to holding up the literal sky to governing prophecy itself. What actually happened is far stranger and far more specific. 3 types of children, 1 shared prison, 1 brother who broke the pattern just enough to answer his mother's call, and scattered fates ranging from eternal imprisonment to a permanent seat advising the gods who replaced them. This is the hinge point of the entire cosmos. Everything before this episode is a single family, and everything after it is what happens when that family finally breaks apart into every god, monster, and mortal story this channel has told or will ever tell. Next, what the victors actually built once the war was finally over, and how a single mountain became the seat of every god you've watched on this channel. Subscribe so you don't miss the finale of this arc.